Hey, feeling good, like I should. When in dark, walk around the neighborhood, feeling blessed.
Hello, ninth grade. Welcome back to your English class. Today's Thursday, May 28th, and as incredible as it sounds, this is your last English class for this school year. And it's bittersweet, but I am happy because I know that you gave it your all, and now you get to see the results of all of your efforts. I just want to quickly go over the topics for the test, so let's begin. The first topic you should focus on is the vocabulary words that we have from Unit 7 and Unit number 8. Now, I want you to please keep in mind that sometimes the same word could have different meanings depending on the context. I'm referring to the different parts of speech. I want you to analyze the sentences provided by the book and keep in mind to use the word in that same context with that same part of speech. Remember, in previous units, we had the word, for example, increase and increase. Increase being the verb and increase being a noun. The word was spelled exactly the same, but we were using it specifically as a noun, I believe, in the list. So examples like that. I want you to analyze the sentences provided here, not because you need to learn them, but just so that you could identify what is the part of speech that the word is connected to in this case. Our first grammar topic was conditional clauses using subordinating conjunctions. And one important thing to note here is the difference between dependent and independent clauses. So dependent clauses are the ones that cannot stand alone in a sentence, and independent clauses are the ones that could be sentences on their own. And we use subordinating conjunctions to connect a subordinate clause to the main clause. Subordinate being dependent, main being the one that could be independent. So, what are some of the subordinating conjunctions you're going to use? Unless, if, even if, in case, or provided, or sometimes provided that. So, for example, if I say they will play the game unless there's a lot of rain, we have our first clause is the main clause or the independent clause. They will play the game. That is your independent clause. And unless there's a lot of rain would be your dependent clause. How do we know this? Because if you say they will play the game, that could perfectly be a sentence on its own. But you cannot say unless there's a lot of rain and have that be a sentence. That's how we know that the first part of the sentence is our independent or main clause. What is connecting both clauses? Well, nothing but our subordinating conjunction right here. Unless. Okay. A second example of this could be she will be part of the national team provided she trains hard. So she will be part of the national team could be your independent or main clause. And then your second clause could be your subordinate clause provided she trains hard. Because again, the first part of the sentence could be a sentence on its own. She will be part of the national team could perfectly be independent, and it doesn't rely on anything. And then we have our subordinating conjunction, in this case, would be provided. One more example, even if we had booked the flight earlier, it wouldn't have been cheaper. So, even if we had booked the flight earlier, in this case, we have our clauses flipped around, and that would be our dependent or subordinate clause, the one that cannot be a sentence on its own because it's not a complete thought. And then the second part, it wouldn't have been cheaper, could be a sentence on its own. So as you can notice, you could flip the clauses around and play around with that as long as you have a clear independent clause and a clear dependent one. And also you are always meant to identify your subordinating conjunction, which in this case is even if. I wrote two more examples down here just for extra practice. Even if you win $1 million, it doesn't mean you'll be happy. So again, we're starting with our dependent clause, the one that cannot be a sentence on its own. And then it doesn't mean you'll be happy. It's your independent clause. And you have your subordinating conjunction at the beginning, even if. And the last example I have for this topic is in case you didn't know, that would be your dependent clause. We had a pop quiz yesterday. It could be a sentence on its own, therefore it's independent or the main clause. And your subordinating conjunction in this case is in case. Our second grammar topic was ing forms as nouns and uncountable nouns with no articles. And the important thing to remember here is that we can use verbs ending in ing and turn them into subjects in a sentence or the noun in a sentence. So, for example, smoking is bad for your health. My focus in the sentence is about smoking, therefore that becomes my subject, even if it's a verb conjugated in ing or progressive form. The same as wearing a seatbelt reduces the risk of death in car accidents. In this case, the action of wearing a seatbelt is your whole noun. Therefore, reduce becomes your main verb in that sentence. With uncountable nouns with no articles, the thing that you have to keep in mind is that when you speak about a noun that's uncountable, you have to speak about something that's general, like the examples here. Music was her life. I'm not specifying, a genre, or I'm not being specific about music. So music in general was her life. Therefore, that's when we know that we do not need an article to precede the word music, as in, because we already know music as a broad concept. The same for education. Education is important for a healthier lifestyle. There is no need for an article before that because you're being general. It's an abstract concept. With adverb phrases in a comparative form, as with adjectives, there are different degrees when you're comparing things. You could have the comparative degree, the positive, the comparative, and the superlative degree. But with adverbs, instead of adding an ER or EST, like we do with adjectives, what we do is add more or much more to identify what type of degree we're talking about. So if I say, you can get to work by car more comfortably than by bicycle, that would be my comparative degree because I am using more to intensify my adverb. But if I said, with this browser, we will be able to search information much more quickly than before, then that would be my the highest degree of comparison, or my superlative degree, much more quickly. Also, remember that most adverbs, not all of them, but most of them, have that ly ending right here. So, like we see in the examples. Not all of them, but most of them do. And remember, some of the words that you can use to use the comparative form are much, far, a lot, quite a lot, a great deal, a good deal, and a good bit. For the topic of be likely to express probability, the only thing I could maybe point out is to remember to use the subject-verb agreement correctly. So, because you are required to use the verb to be in this case. So look at your subject, and based on that, you are going to decide what form of the verb to be you need to be using. So for example, smokers are more likely to develop lung cancer compared to non-smokers. Smokers, if you were to change that to a pronoun, that would represent they, and they is a plural pronoun, therefore it goes with the form of the verb to be are. In the other hand, the example in the bottom is using a singular pronoun. John, replaced by a pronoun, is he, and he is always connected to the form of the verb to be is. So keep that in mind when you're changing your sentences to a sentence using be likely to. We use them to talk about something that's going to be likely to happen, something that has the chance of happening, or on the other hand, something that will probably never happen. Complex prepositions. So, just to refresh your memory, a preposition is a connecting word that is placed before either nouns, noun phrases, or pronouns. Now, a lot of prepositions are just made up of one word, but we do have some that are made up of 2 or even 3 words, but they work as a single unit. And those are the ones that we call complex prepositions. There is a list of them right here in your textbook. So please make sure you read it and you understand how to use them. I suggest that you go back to the video where we discussed this. I think I have a lot more examples that you can use as a reference. And our last topic that was from unit number 8 was there plus verbs with modal meaning plus be. So when we combine there with the verb to be, we express the existence of something, and we had to make this existence either hypothetical or certain in the future, or maybe a request. Some of the modal verbs that we can use to decide how the existence of that something will be are could, might, or may. And we use them when we want to talk about something hypothetical, meaning that it's not actually real. If we would want to maybe talk about something that will probably happen in the future, or it's going to be certain in the future, then we can use will or is going to. And if you wanted to talk about something that you are asking for, a request, then you could use should, must, have to, or need to. Please keep that in mind. Before our class ends, I just want to say how happy I am that I got to be your English teacher this year again. It was great to reconnect with all of you and to see how you have grown in so many aspects of your lives. So my hope is that you do great in the upcoming tests and that you continue to do awesome things. You're all meant to do great things. You're all superstars. Don't let anyone ever tell you otherwise.